Today we're talking about 5 habits you need to develop as a researcher to become more effective, efficient, and help you get that PhD a lot easier. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first habit is all about understanding the source and getting down to the source. So what I mean by this is any information you take in, you consume, any conversation you have, any paper you read, any experiment you come across, any method, any form of analysis, anything to do with your research, we have to have the habit of being able to understand it down to the source. The reason why is that taking surface level information and taking on face value can be actually quite a detriment to yourself. For example, when I was doing my PhD, I took a method just on face value from a paper, didn't really think of it much, didn't go down to the source, understanding how it worked, and just did it. And for 2-3 months, I wasted resources because I didn't realize this method wasn't valid. I didn't understand the role it played in my PhD. I just thought, okay, it looks really cool. Didn't really understand the source, going down to like the mechanism and the understanding. And as a result, unfortunately, I wasted a lot of time. So even when you're understanding the basics of your research or the founding principles of your research, we have to get into the habit of going down to source so we understand the why, the how. Something I talk a lot about on my Instagram page and here, Aamir.phd, in case you have forgotten or you may not know about Instagram page. But back to the point, it's really important that we understand down to the core, what we call first principles, something that Elon Musk talks about quite often, this notion of basic first principles. We have to be able to understand that so then we can change that information, we can, evolve and develop it into what we need to do. If we don't truly understand it, how are we going to utilize it? So the second habit is actually related to number one quite nicely, which is the notion of verifying everything. Now, yes, we only need to understand the source, but we need to also make sure it's authentic and verifying its validity wherever we go. So if we're taking methods from somebody or papers from someone, we need to make sure that this method is verified, it's been cited quite a few times, it's not in a maybe obscure or predatory journal that may not have much backing or much validity itself. You may have taken, some discussions at a conference, but you haven't verified that chemical or that reagent or that form of analysis. It may be new to you, but you haven't realized that, okay, is this actually authentic? And whatever we do in life, we have to make sure it is as authentic as possible. So doing your homework or doing your kind of, screening to make sure that this paper, this type of information, this form of analysis, or this even type of data that's been given to you or generated somewhere else, have you verified it? Have you verified the method that you're doing? Have you verified it this way, that way, that way, and that way? Have you looked at it from that point of view? So verification from start all the way down to the nth degree has to be there throughout your entire PhD, because one of the main reasons that a lot of people potentially might fail in PhD is they don't have enough controls in their experiments or don't have enough, basic parallel studies in their qualitative work to make sure that the research is of a very valid nature. So you're verifying everything. So verifying also doesn't mean, you're making authentic as possible. It's also verifying your data by these controls that I've just mentioned. A lot of the researchers that I've spoken to and worked with all mentioned that the controls in your research control your data, and they control the validity, the authenticity, because you've backed it up by it can't be this, it can't be that, it's not due to this, it's due to what we think the data is. So that's very important in terms of research, verifying everything from start. Number 3 is all about organizing everything. And when I mean everything, I mean not just your experiments, your writing, your meetings, but organizing your morning, afternoon, evening, organizing your day, organizing your week, organizing your year, organizing your thoughts about research, organizing your papers, organizing how you're going to do these experiments. Organize everything. The reason why is that so much time is unfortunately wasted. Me first and foremost when I did my PhD, and even now, so a lot of time is wasted because we haven't organized everything. It's not as efficient, it's not as effective, and annoyingly, we actually forget to get that done because it's not really organized. We don't understand it properly. And that's incredibly important in the world of research, where we want to be as effective as possible. We want to make sure that the way we've designed these experiments is as efficient as possible, so we're not wasting resources. In the qualitative nature, the way we've designed these interview questions, these questionnaire questions, are nice and succinct, so we're not adding too much information that might skew our data, because there's 12 questions that shouldn't be there. So that's really important about organizing. But even how you plan your week, do a certain amount of experiments this day because you have time to do it, and do analysis on another day when you don't have time, and being really smart about it. Something I talk about quite often before is people say, you shouldn't work hard, you should work smart. But what I found if you work smart and hard, that's even better, isn't it? And that's the notion of being organized as well. You can grind, be relentless, but also be efficient about it. And then you're doubly ahead, if that's the word, doubly ahead of the rest of the people. It's very important. The fourth habit is all about thought, capture, execute. And there's this cycle that we need to ingrain as a habit, because quite often in research we have an idea, we then try to capture it by writing it down or doing whatever, and then we try and execute it if it's a form of analysis, form of experiment, form of some sort of data collection, and without realizing that's actually quite a cycle that we do day in, day out. So if we can make that as efficient as possible and grain as a second autonomous habit, we then minimize delays between those two. Because sometimes we think of an idea and then 3 weeks later we capture it, as opposed to capturing there and then we wasted that time. Or sometimes we think of an idea and because we fail to capture it, that idea gets lost and then you may think of it 6-7 months later. And some people create an entire research project of an idea somebody else had but didn't capture it. And then the second part, the second phase, which is the capturing. We know that that's very important in terms of making sure we go from capture to then applying it or utilizing it or making it efficient. And that's really important in this cycle that we need to do as researchers, where we have an idea, capture it down, scrutinize it, make sure it's authentic, make sure it's actually quite useful, and then start executing it. So there's no delays. And unfortunately, again, as I mentioned earlier, we do get those delays and we don't want to minimize them as much as possible in research. So we're not wasting funding, we're not wasting time, we're not wasting time of supervisors or of colleagues. Thought, capture, execute. Very important, right? The last habit is actually my favorite. It's something I've tried to do so much since my PhD, and something I'm a bit advocate for. That is mindset solidification. That's a very fancy way of saying ingraining the ups and downs of research into your brain, so then when things go really well, we're not overly excited or we're not overly emotional, because there are times when it goes down. And when it does go really unwell and does go really badly, and you've got months and months of research that didn't go well, we're not too disappointed because we can focus on the next thing. And this is the mindset of a researcher, right? Because you get those purple patches, you get those months of wasted work, or what we call wasted work. And that is something we need to take in our stride to say, okay, that's a shame. What next? Oh, that's really, really good. What next? That was amazing. Okay, what do we need to do next? And making sure that, yes, we enjoy it to a point. Yes, we are human, we get upset to a point, but not making sure there's too many extremes, because then that will waste days, weeks, sometimes even months of feeling it, because we may have celebrated too much and didn't verify the data, and we may be moping around too much where we could have done something. And that's incredibly important. And the way we can ingrain this is actually talking to ourselves. I used to talk to myself so often in my PhD about, okay, it's not if, it's when. In the notion of not if I finish my PhD, it's when I finish my PhD. Yes, this might happen, but it's okay. What can I do next? What did I learn? What can I focus on? Okay, that was really amazing. Okay, how can I maximize it? So always focusing on the next thing. But there's always a balance in everything where we enjoy the moment that, yes, we've got some really good data, but not to, again, focus on too much. Focus on the next bit. What is the next thing we can do? And that's part of being a good researcher, is analysing what's gone well, analysing what's gone wrong, and then learning from it, and then starting on the next phase, the next experiment, the next analysis, the next part of that research. And that's what we have to do as researchers. So guys, those are some 5 quick habits that we need to ingrain as researchers that I think will be beneficial for us in maximizing our time as a PhD student, a postdoctoral student, or even a master's student if you're doing a master's by research. And even if you're an undergraduate and you're doing a research project, these are 5 habits that are very applicable for all of us. I hope you did find it useful. If you do consider subscribing to the channel, as you can see here. Give a like for the video so you can help more and more people. And I shall see you in the next one. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you soon.